What's up? What's up? What's up? And welcome back to After the Snap. And as you can see, it's not just me today. I got a couple of friends that came along with me so that we can discuss these controversial uh, topics in Star Trek. So we want to introduce. You probably have seen him in our chat, but Reinhardt, who has been with me from the beginning of my channel. I appreciate you for your staying power, first and foremost. And I also appreciate you being here today.
Love being here.
Same goes for Win Grace. Win Grace is probably notable for being in the chat for the last couple of weeks, but also he has his own channel, and it's a channel that I have been following for a little while, and I am watching it move from incrementally getting bigger and bigger, more recognized, and you can see the improvement in, I guess, in all of us. We all get a little bit better at what we're doing. So thanks for being here, Win Grace.
Thanks for having me.
Also known as, can we call you by your government name, or do you want to just be Win Grace?
I don't care. Whatever you want to call me.
Also known as Josh. Okay, so
apparently there's a lot of Joshes out there. I didn't realize that till recently.
I've got a nephew named Josh. Justin's in the house. Say hi, Justin. Hello. And Clarence is also in the house. I've got a poll going in the chat, which is the most controversial Trek moment, and I've only got 4 on here, right? Code of Honor, season 1, episode 4. Thank you for bringing that to my attention, Josh, because I had forgotten about that stupid episode. In the Pale Moonlight, this is the complete existence of Section 31, and the TOS World War II symbology, patterns of force, where they had all that Nazi stuff. Those were the ones I put in the chat. So far, it's a 3-way tie. Code of Honor, In the Pale Moonlight, and the existence of Section 31. So hopefully, as more people come in, we'll get more thoughts. Hey, Lysandra. My friend Lysandra is in the chat, and I'm going to need everybody to send your best wishes because she is, once again, ill and in the hospital. But she did join us.
Get better, Lysandra. Miss you.
Feeling better soon.
Oh, Dreamwalker said he didn't know what to vote in the poll because he's not familiar enough. That's okay. Well, before we get into our controversial stuff, we're going to talk about what the typical things that we discuss, which is our news, our captain's log, and it's not too much going on this week in our news. We're going to talk about the writer's strike and how that might impact Star Trek. Now, as we know, it's not going to put any impact on Strange New Worlds. Strange New Worlds is coming out June 15th, no matter what, right? Come hell or high water. But what about everything coming after that? Do we think that this is going to affect maybe what's going on with the movie with Michelle Yeoh? That may very well be affected by this writer's strike. So for those who don't know, the Writers Guild of America has been seeking changes that include how production companies and studios pay out residuals for streaming. So, once things went from regular television to streaming, that contracts and things were going to have to change. We saw that happen a lot with Disney and the Scarlett Johansson thing. Mm-hmm. So now the writers are looking for adjustments to be made to the way they are paid. And it's a shame that we have to take it to a strike, but this is where we are right now. We know that anything that is written and that is live and scripted, or is scripted and recorded, if it hasn't been recorded yet and the script hasn't been written yet, guess what? It's stalling. So what do we think that we're going to see as far as what's going on with the writer strike and how that might affect Star Trek? You got anything on Grace?
Well, one thing, and I'm not entirely certain if this is true, is the animated series, from what I understand, shouldn't be affected by this.
You're right.
They're a whole separate, I guess they're brought out of the old school, like it's a creative thing, it's not a written thing, something like that. So I
Yeah.
guess there's a potential we could see an upping of those series depending on how long this takes. Um, Similarly, with something like the Michelle Yeoh Section 31 movie, if this doesn't last too long, one thing I was wondering is it going to make the script rushed? So are they still going to try and hit that deadline eventually, but not give it those extra passes or not write in some things they might mull over and just kind of get it to the finish line sooner? So might we see an older version of that without implementing anything new? Because I thought they might try to write in a connection with this new legacy series if they're going to go forward with that.
And I did too. I thought they would try to figure out a way to bridge those two things together. You got anything, Larry, for this writer strike?
Oh, it's sad that we have to come back to this so much
Mm-hmm.
because this happened before, and I think, especially in this age of streaming now, you're just gonna there's so much. I mean, you're doing less episodes now, generally with streaming, but still at the same time, the stories are a lot more complex because when you
Mm-hmm.
had 21 episodes or 22, whatever it was, you had a lot of fillers.
Mm-hmm.
And this stuff, I mean, it's the writers really are under the gun to get this stuff done. And I personally, I do not know what all they're asking for additionally, but knowing Hollywood executives, they probably deserve what they're asking for.
And more, probably. They're probably asking for the bare minimum, So what's going on with the strike, and then knowing that we are about to get Star Trek Discovery's final season? Do we think that that writing is done and they've tightened everything up already, and that we know where we're going as far as an ending for that series, or will this even delay that more?
I personally think they're done with Discovery. I think everything. I mean, they might still be working on the VFX, but as far as I know and things that I've read, Discovery's done. We're just waiting on it to air now.
Okay, now because I've got different information here, so I know we were running off of something that we all thought originally,
Mhm.
but Strange New Worlds, their Discovery, because they didn't want to pay for a different studio set or something of that nature, whatever lot Strange New Worlds was filming on,
Mhm.
Discovery was going to use that lot to clean up the end of their series.
Hmm.
So
Oh,
that, yeah, so now we know that that filming is not done because they were trying to wait until Strange New Worlds. I think. Let me read this so that I won't be just making stuff up. Okay, the strike will have no impact on the upcoming second season of Strange New Worlds, which wrapped up production last year and is set to debut on June 15th. The strike won't necessarily affect the recently announced third season of the show, which was expected to go into production this summer. Writing began before the official announcement, and it is quite possible many, if not most, of the 10 scripts for the season have been completed. Even though Strange New Worlds writers are based in Los Angeles, the show was produced in Canada. Um, let's push past that part because I here we are. Production on the fifth and final season of Discovery wrapped up in late 2022. Paramount Plus has set an early 2024 debut. The one wrinkle is the planned extended season finale, which will now include some additional scenes to make it work as a series finale. Like Strange New Worlds, Discovery is shot in Toronto. It's likely production for these scenes would be done right before shooting starts for season 3 of Strange New Worlds to minimize the additional cost of the reshoots. So, because they expected this strike, they may have gotten this script tightened up already. But if they didn't, now we have to wait again for the script to be written, and then the prior to them starting Strange New Worlds, they'll finish filming Discovery, if that's making sense.
Right.
It's crazy. So here's a series, I mean, a season that we've been waiting for how long? Has it been 2 years?
Yeah, it's been since before Strange New Worlds premiered.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
And we might end up have to wait just a little bit more. Let me see what Dreamwalker says here. I feel like Discovery should be done, but I was hoping they'd add more scenes after the cancellation news. So yeah, that's where we are. We're hoping to get some more scenes. We don't know for sure. Of course, this is all speculation. And if they are serious about keeping things the wheels running over there on streaming and with all of our different streaming services, at some point they're going to have to listen to these the writers and get them their money. You know what I'm saying? Just get these people their money. They are the bread and butter of streaming TV and anything else. So yeah, so if you guys have any thoughts on the writers strike in the comments, I'd love to hear it. And we're gonna push on. The thing we're gonna push on to next is these strange new episode titles. Now they could be right, but again, I haven't seen this uh, announced anywhere else except for on Sci Fanatics, their YouTube channel or his YouTube channel. And also, you know, you started seeing it bounce around on Reddit as well. And I don't know if Reddit got it from his channel and just went roll with what he was saying. But they sound it sounds kind of plausible that these would be the titles. Let me see. And starting with the Broken Circle. So that is the first episode of Strange New World season 2, reportedly or allegedly. The Broken Circle, we probably are. Can we agree that that one was probably just going to close the door that was left open last season with Una? Is that what we think is going to happen with the Broken Circle?
Seems
Maybe.
that's likely, or at least they'll touch upon it and save it for episode 2. But based on the trailer, it looks like she's in a lot of the seasons. So
yeah, it wasn't like, yeah, it's not like we don't see her. She's there. Let me see. This ad astra per aspera, and I think I put an extra R in there. Is Latin for, and I forgot. Uh, did I write it down? Oh yeah, to the stars through hardship. To the stars through hardship. So that could be about anything in Star Trek. You guys got any guesses?
No, no, no.
Unrelated. I mean, kind of maybe her story. I don't know.
It could be, yeah. To the stars through hardship. It could be. So the next one, 3, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow.
I tell you right off the bat, that sounds like one of those caught in a time loop titles.
Oh, yeah. That's what it sounds like to me. I felt like it.
I don't know if that has anything to do with it, or if
What's
they're just
that?
it's Shakespeare.
Yeah. Was it Macbeth?
Yeah. So I don't know. It sounds familiar. Like haven't they already used part of that quote in Star Trek before?
I can't say I remember.
I swear I think I've heard it
before somewhere. Was it all our tomorrows? All our yesterdays?
Oh, maybe that's
one of those is a TOS episode. It's either all our tomorrows or all our yesterdays, but I can't remember. But yeah, it was also some time travel stuff. So that's what this sounds like too. Mm-hmm. So we got one good guess on this one. Among the Lotus Eaters, that's the Odyssey, but Homer's The Odyssey. And in where the Lotus Eaters were from an island where the people were kind of lazy and all they did was use drugs all day and slept. So I don't know if that's where they're going. Instead, they don't confront their problems. They just say, "Oh, look, there's another problem. Let's do some more drugs." So I don't know, but that sounds interesting. Charades could could be anything, right? uh,
I'm throwing a wild guess out here, although lost in translation might be connected. They lose the ability to talk to each other. Um,
oh,
maybe they have to use sign language, and then the second one, the universal translator goes out. Those are my guesses for these. Just seeing the titles for the first time.
that's plausible because the way I was looking at Lost in Translation was a Uhura period. It's just a Uhura episode because of her ability to speak all those languages. But the charades tie-in could be something. You got anything, um, Reinhardt?
Charades could be something where they go undercover. Could be something where they,
Mm,
have to pretend to be somebody they
yeah,
are not. Or knowing Star Trek could be where they have to communicate with somebody in regular linguistics can't do it.
I gotta
Who knows?
yeah, gotta show it instead of tell.
Yeah,
uh, Number 7, those old scientists.
they got to
That's
be.
the one that many are saying that's the crossover between them and Lower Decks.
Oh, it's got to
So
be.
it sounds like it, and I'm still very interested on how that's going to work. But I do I'm I've signed on more for it now that I know that it's not going to be like Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Now that I know that that it's going to be the live action characters, I think
Mhm.
I can get on board a little bit more.
I'm
Uh,
looking forward to that a lot because I'm a big Jack Quaid fan from
mm-hmm,
everything he does on the boys and the young man, it's in his blood,
of course.
considering who his parents are, but he's just so good. But I'm looking forward to seeing Tani. I think she's seeing her in live action will be awesome.
Yes, she and I am glad that they are using the actual actors that voice these characters. So that's another thing I'm happy about. As far as that crossover is concerned, I am very interested though in seeing how they pull that off. Number 8, Under the Cloak of War. Is that the one where we
Klingons.
see our Klingons?
I'm,
Klingons.
I'm thinking Klingons, yeah. Although technically, if you want to get pedantic, this is supposed to be before the cloaking device. If we're going from TOS um, era stuff, or no, that was
So
a Romulan.
That is true.
But
are we going with the fact that we think that the Klingons got Roman cloaking device? I mean Romulan cloaking devices, or are we going with the Klingons developed their own cloaking device?
Well, I can only say the non-canon version I know. The non-canon version through the books and everything was that the Romulans developed the cloaking devices first,
Right.
and it was a deal with the Klingons. The Klingons actually, because people said it was a deal with the Klingons and they gave the technology to the Klingons. Doesn't sound likely. In another scenario, the Klingons actually destroyed. There you go. That sounds a lot more likely. And took the cloaking device from a destroyed Romulan ship and reverse engineered it.
Either now that I wouldn't mind. I definitely wouldn't mind if we are saying that the Klingons do what Klingons do, and if you guys got destroyed and then we pillage your what's left of your spacecraft and we take your technology, that sounds and improve upon it. Because am I right in saying the Klingon cloaking device is more stable than the Romulan one, or is it because of what the Romulan uses to propel their warp drive that I'm thinking is
that's plausible. The interaction between the gravity well or whatever might be easier to detect through a cloak, something like that.
okay. So, but okay, and it did Discovery, because I don't know, I don't remember. I would have to watch it all again. Did Discovery season 1 establish that the Klingons got their cloaking device from elsewhere? From
Mm.
and I don't know. Don't from the Sarco.
I don't
No,
remember ever hearing him say,
I don't remember, but I've got notes. You know how you just
but
scour the internet for things. I
but
got notes saying that that is how long that they've had these cloaking devices, but I have not re-watched Discovery to clarify whether or not this is true. So this is just me tossing it out there and was hoping one of you guys remembered because I do not remember.
well, Josh just said it. If you go by the thing, because obviously Discovery is first season is actually happening right before the original Trek and everything. And the Klingons clearly have cloaking technology, but like he said, it wouldn't be later on till we saw the Romulans in Balance of Terror
Mm-hmm.
with a cloaking device.
Now,
So
did they have it? And we got to remember, you got to go back to Enterprise because we thinking of things so out of order. Did
true.
the Romulans have it already in Enterprise?
They did, at
Yeah,
least there. Although I don't know if it was technically a cloak or they were trying to say it was some earlier form of like shrouding techno. I don't know. So
yeah.
there could be a little wiggle room there, but I know potentially they were going to rectify the timeline had Enterprise had a season 5, which obviously they didn't. So, but I guess they could go along and say history was changed or something. And
And I guess we should just wait, even though it just it does make sense that it's either we are either heading in the direction of under the cloak of war. It's going to be those Klingons. It's going to be those Romulans. But we should not be seeing the Romulans in Strange New Worlds.
that's that's still part of canon, include considering the last episode of season 1 of Strange New Worlds when
Yeah, we
they
still
redid.
hadn't seen them.
Yeah. So we
Oh,
still should not be seeing Romulans. So if it is them, it's going to be off screen, or obviously we know there's Klingons from the
right.
trailer.
Yeah, we see those. Okay, so Justin was setting me up, telling me that all our yesterdays was the title. So I said it was all
okay.
our tomorrows. It was all our yesterdays.
Okay.
Clarence said Pike would be appalled by Mariner's antics, but would he though? I think he likes that playful stuff. He runs a. It's not like he's ruling with an iron
Yeah.
fist on his ship. He's a little more loose.
Yeah,
Or am I reading his character right?
he's not a Jean-Luc.
Right, and John Luke ain't even as see. Once you start, and the reason why I'm even thinking about this is because it's on my list over here for controversial moments. Is John Luke ain't as John Luke as we think he is when we put him next to Jellicoe.
Oh
We
no.
find out what a real strict captain looks like when you have Jellicoe and you put him in the mix. John Luke is a little relaxed, if you ask me. As long as you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you really don't have any problem out of him.
Well, especially after season 2. Those
Yeah,
first couple seasons, he was a lot stricter.
yeah, and I can agree. He became more when the crew became more of a family to him, he kind of relaxed a little bit. Um, and yes, Clarence was saying, didn't the sarcophagus ship have that
Mhm.
cloaking
Yes,
device?
it
It
did.
did. And now that you say it, I do remember it. And Justice says, and I'm gonna have to move these pictures around because you get covered every time a comment comes up here. By TOS, the Romulans gave Klingons the cloak in 2268 during their alliance, but that's TOS era. So there we have another side of this, even though again, it depends on which timeline we're talking about because Discovery clearly, like Clarence says, clearly established that sarcophagus ship already had the cloak.
Mhm.
But Justin is making a point that the Romulans and the Klingons had some sort of alliance, and that could have been where they got the cloak, like you guys were saying. So we'll find out in the episode, I'm pretty sure. Number 9, Subspace Rhapsody. I'm thinking it's that one episode wherever when Spock had his loot, and the only reason is because of Bohemian Rhapsody. I'm thinking Subspace Rhapsody. Could be wrong. Could be reading this whole thing wrong altogether. But that's the way I'm looking at it. What do you think about Subspace Rhapsody? or do you think anything?
I don't know on that one.
Yeah, that's a hard one. Last but not least, hegemony or hegemony.
Oh, we know who that is. That's the Gorn.
Yep, we getting more Gorn ish. How do we feel
I like the
about?
Gorn. They were always underused because they brought them in that one episode, and the B canon or beta canon had they've set up a whole, where there are different kinds of Gorns. There are small, fast ones. There are big, bulky ones like the one we saw. There's all different kinds of variations of Gorns in their society.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so is this where you think they're going? Are we going to see different varieties? Because the variety that we saw last season, small and fast, or smaller and faster. And then we had the big clumsy one that we saw in TOS. And Enterprise, that one was kind of clumsy and big, but not as clumsy as the TOS one. But so do we think we're going to see different kinds of Gorn?
I
Is
think
that what
that
you would hope?
interesting, although a lot of people might think that's a little too close to the Xindi from Enterprise. But for me personally, I think that it could open up a new way to explore the species or the race or whatever they are, because that gives them more opportunity to bring in the unknown. Like, you don't know what you're encountering. You don't know if they're actually going to be the smart ones or the fierce ones or whatever.
And it would make sense because we've got Kirk and we've got Spock both in Strange New Worlds, and they both, you would think, have experienced this type of Gorn, the one that we've seen so far in Strange New Worlds. So maybe when they see the one in TOS, they don't recognize it as
Oh,
a
Gorn.
member of that same species. So what you guys are saying does make sense. I
Yeah.
think I hope that we will get multiple kinds of Gorn, all inhabiting the same planet or the same system of planets. And this one that they saw in TOS, they like, what the heck is this? And it turns out that it's a Gorn.
Mm-hmm.
I got one for you guys though. I know you guys have seen Galaxy Quest.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Wouldn't it be interesting if they did an episode like in that episode they have one of the Gorns and he's kind of hurt and the others come over like they're gonna help him and they all eat him.
That would be funny.
And they
But
need Sam Kirk in that scene to play the
oh,
guy version from Galaxy Quest.
Justice says they have retconned the lore so much on the cloak tech. He also says that he likes the Gorn. They're really interested in the books and the comics, so it's good. So that's what you all have in common, that y'all are in the books and novels and the comic books as well. Oh, I'm just watching TV. I'm just watching TV. Let me see if we got any. So far, In the Pale Moonlight seems to be leading over here on our poll. Clarence says, in fact, there was an entire plot point of Disco doing micro jumps to figure out the cloaking tech, and Palvo as well. I don't know
That
what
is
Palvo.
true. Yeah.
What is Palvo? Am I remember? What am I
The
forgetting?
the planet, what is it? That was alive. It was like what was it? Clarence knows. Now I forgot because they did it in Star Trek Online. They did like 2 different episodes on Pavo on how the planet is alive.
I just can't remember. You got anything, Josh, for that?
I mean, if they're leaning into a new series of events, as long as they stick with those series of events, I tend to be okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I did want to mention one of the writers for Strange New Worlds, or the showrunner or someone, he did mention the Gorn thing back when it came out, saying that the original series Gorn could have just been a misunderstanding. That Kirk, having not seen a Gorn, that's just what he imagined them to look like, or something along
Oh,
those lines. So it was just a representation in his mind of a real Gorn. I don't know. That's a little wonky to me, but
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope they tighten that excuse up a little bit more. But as far as what you guys just said, or what Reinhardt just said, that there is a potential that there are multiple kinds of Gorn. If y'all listening, Strange New Worlds writers and showrunners, use that. Do not go with just Kirk's imagination didn't have a Gorn figured out right. Use the there are multiple kinds of Gorn. I like that. Um, so yeah, so we did the whole season of Strange New World season 2 episode titles. Hopefully, this was not like an exercise in futility, and that these are really the titles. But if not, it was fun anyway.
10 minutes they'll release the real ones.
Right, because eventually, in my mind, I would think that if these leaked and these were not supposed to be out, then I would say they're going to change at least one or two of these titles. But if they meant for it to come out, if they leaked it themselves, if they're, whatever, then this is what we're getting, and we'll be happy to know that we were critiquing the right titles. Looks like a good season, and ending on a Gorn note again. Did it end on a Gorn note last season?
No, it ended with
that was the Una episode.
Yeah.
Last season. Okay.
I hope we get to see more of those future uniforms, though. That was one thing I did like, the new maroon uniforms.
I want to see more of that. I also want to see more of these. We're going to see more of the people that are just stopping through your Captain Kirks. Even though I think we're going to overuse him. Don't overuse him, but it feels like we're going to overuse him.
Yes.
But I like to see some people just stopping through. It doesn't necessarily always have to be us being cocooned with our crew. But it looks like we're gonna get that with the Klingons. It's gonna be a lot of away stuff, which looks good.
I'd love some Tholian stuff, although technically they're probably not supposed to show up this early either. But that would be kind of
the Tholian with the web.
The Tholian web people.
The Tholian web.
Yeah.
Could the Gorn thing be about Himmer not being gone? Look, and this is discussing Trek. So all of us are familiar with discussing Trek here because we talk about it on a regular. That's our friend Clarence's podcast, and I don't know which of the co-hosts this would be. Probably Kyle. Let me know if I'm right, Kyle. But could this be about Himmer not being gone? I hope so. Because again, I keep saying Himmer could survive. He is the one of the few species that could survive in that climate. So why would that necessarily, just because he got left there, he sacrificed himself to be there? That doesn't mean he's dead. It just means that he's there, right? Is it something I'm forgetting?
Dude fell off a cliff.
That one downside is they showed him jumping off a cliff, but there's ways around that. I mean, it's Starfleet.
Maybe that's some stuff that they used to do as kids all the time on that.
Please, as long as they don't do when he jumped off that cliff, there was a Gorn ship in the air and picked him up because they wanted to save one of their young. It's like, oh my God, okay, we're doing the Darth Maul thing where you cut in half and still survive.
Well, we'll see. But I wouldn't mind it discussing Trek. I would not mind that this turning into Himmer still being around in some way, shape, or form. Justice says the Gorn are a very complex group. There's a rich history to be told there, and also the Tholians as well. So there's your Tholian in agreement.
Tholians.
Clarence says parts of this trailer definitely look like modern day shopping center with Kirk and Khan. And yeah, what you calling a Khan? Oh, goodness gracious. I'm gonna leave it like that too. I'm not even gonna Clarence said it was me. I jumped on my computer and was accidentally logged in with that account. Oh, okay. No, don't say sorry. I was hoping that was one of your co-hosts. Would love Himmer to be back from Justin, and Clara says zombie humor. I don't know if I'm ready for zombie humor. I wish they wouldn't have pulled the trigger so quickly on getting rid of that character.
I
There was
know
so
because
much more that we could have explored with him. Go ahead.
Exactly. He was the one truly alien being on the ship who hasn't had tons of history in Star Trek because they were what, 2 episodes of Enterprise, basically the Anar or Enar.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
And
I
now
love it.
everyone knows Spock's history. So I mean, he's the only alien left, and Lon is genetically enhanced, and Una's an Illyrian, but they still look like regular humans.
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say I actually loved Himmer and Una's like they almost were set up to have kind of a from the Spock and McCoy
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
relationship, like frenemies, like because when she goes down and she's like tells him to do the diagnostic, and he's like, that'll take so many hours, and she
Mm-hmm.
looks at him and he goes, I can feel your stare, and she says, oh, I know you can. That
Yeah.
was
I
cool. I wanted to see more of that.
Yeah, we needed more of him, or because we started to see him mellow towards the end of the season, especially
Yeah.
in his interaction, his relationship with Uhura. You started to see that mellowing out, and then all of a sudden, okay, let's 86 this character. We don't need him no more. That just I didn't like that.
I feel like they used him to push her into deciding to stay in the Starfleet career
Yes.
instead
They
of
could have,
keeping him around to kind of mentor her throughout the rest of the series, or at least a couple more seasons.
yeah.
You know,
I would have appreciated them doing it. I would have appreciated them doing that, still using him to kind of be a I guess a mentor to her, without killing him off. We didn't have to kill the character off in order to continue to have her have something or use him as a motivation to stay in Starfleet.
and now we have a stopgap of another engineer who needs to come in before Scotty shows up.
And what we're going to do with this one? Oh, okay. What we're gonna do with this one, and are we gonna? Is this gonna become a exercise of the engineer becoming a new red shirt, where every season we go kill off an engineer
Oh,
to bring a new one in?
maybe that's their joke. That's their running gag. Let's kill off a high-ranking red shirt.
Remember, TNG kind of wanted to stay away because we had one guy as the engineer for 5 minutes. And then I
Yeah.
think we had a lady as the engineer and they finally said, we got to make it a main member of the crew. So this
Oh,
make
you mean
Jordan the engineer.
Argyle? Because there's actually a great story behind him. He got himself fired from the show.
I heard something about that.
Tell me.
So he was So basically, he was trying to do like an online petition back in the days before there was an online petition. So he wrote people from like Star Trek Maggie, whatever, something, telling people, hey, write into Star Trek and tell them you want me to become the main chief engineer. So they did, but the letters arrived the week before his episode aired. So
Oh,
they knew he was.
so he had to be the one.
So they fired him on the spot. They're like, all right, we're done with you.
Yeah, you're right. I had heard that.
Oh, I never heard that.
I forgot about
hilarious.
it. I think it was culture.
So, and Justin says, yes, Win Grace, we need to keep some of these new characters around and tell their history and their stories. We can all agree with that. And please remember to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't yet done so. I think everybody here is subscribed already. I can't see you if you're on Twitter, but if you are, hi. Clarence says, yes, another case of making use of a character only for them to die to serve the arc of another character. Exactly. Oh, wait a minute. Talk to me, Justin, now. Did anyone see Terry Matalas said there was a final scene for Laris and Picard? I saw where somebody was talking about it in an article, and I didn't click on the article because I was like, I'm so sick of them retroactively talking about what they did with this series and they didn't show us. If they didn't show us, it didn't happen. So, but if you're saying that that they had a final scene for Laris and Picard, I'd like to know about it.
Yeah, I want to know what that final scene is. Is it them together or him coming clean and them saying goodbye forever?
And that's the thing. These are things that I think should have been part of the series. Now, it doesn't have to be. It didn't have to be a big deal. Could have just shown him writing a letter or whatever. It could have been anything, but it was just like, forget her. She was from last season.
Or him just calling her and her saying, I understand, because she seems like the type of person who knew what was going on the whole time.
And am I right now? Y'all the novel people. Am I right that Romulans in the novels they could be in polyamorous relationships where it's more than one partner? Yes? No? Maybe so.
Possibly. I
know Andor.
Never heard it
off my head. But why not?
I saw it somewhere.
Let's say yes. Why not?
I was like, I saw it somewhere, and I was like, well, I can get on board with that. I can I can roll with the Romulans being that enlightened in their relationships,
They kind of played with that when they killed her husband randomly off screen between seasons. And she gave him that little story about, Romulans love hard and love deep, but then we were able to move on like super quick.
Yeah, and she did not waste no time. She was on to the next. Keenser is the next engineer, Abrams verse.
Oh yeah, that guy.
We got Pelia. What's her name? Pelia?
What did he say? Kinsler?
Keens. He was the little
yeah. Oh, yeah, that little thing.
Yeah, that was okay. Depp Roy, I got a story on that. He was here at a convention in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and we actually got to go over to the Grand 14 Theater. And Star Trek was premiering, the second Star Trek movie, Into Darkness was premiering, and he kind of hosted it, and you got to pay a fee, hear him talk, and then watch the movie with him in the audience. It was very cool. He's very, because everybody saw Charlie in the Chocolate Factory.
Not everybody.
You didn't see it?
I didn't.
Oh, it was awesome. You got to see 80,000 of him. But yeah, and he's a very nice guy too.
Well, good. I'm glad you got the opportunity to meet him.
That's an example of a new character that they created and actually kept around a little bit.
Yeah, they let him breathe. The movies, that's I guess that's the difference between what they're doing in the movies and what they're doing in the series. And I'm not saying that the series are completely getting it wrong. We are getting some dynamite characters out of the series, but Hammer was, as we talked about earlier, an original character. He was not attached to anybody else, and we could have watched that breathe instead of having La'an Noonien Singh, who we're not even supposed to know about her people, her uncle or cousin or whoever he was. We're not even supposed to know about him until the original series. So those are the little things I can nitpick. I'm not going to nitpick it too much because Strange New Worlds was some excellent television.
Yes.
But the choices that were made with these characters it just breaks my heart.
Yeah, there's a few things that it seems like they were doing for reasons that didn't benefit the story. Necessarily, for their internal creative reasons, I guess.
Or is it like, I really think that sometimes these people are afraid that if they don't have somebody who everybody recognizes, then they're going to lose part of the audience. And I'm thinking, wouldn't you lose part of the audience if this introduction of this character is not making sense in the time that you're putting them? To me, part of the audience will walk away because of that as well.
Well, and he was, I would think, a character that would make sense to kill off later.
Yeah.
Even if you do one more season down the road and then bring in Scotty directly,
right?
At least that would have given. But instead, we got, because he wasn't even in every episode. So he was in, what do we have, 10 episodes? He was in 7 of them, maybe. So we didn't even get enough time to really find out if he was going to be a good or bad character.
Right. The emotional attachment. This could that moment could have had far more of an impact if they had waited one more season to look for us to get more attached to him and then lose him. Even though I was attached to him already,
and they built him up like that episode from the beginning. You're like, oh, he's gonna die. If they killed him off a little more shockingly in the middle of season 2, that might have been more effective.
Yeah. So if you look up Red Shirts Always Die, Terry said there was no time to shoot. I don't even want to hear this excuse. There was no time to shoot the Laris and Picard ending. Right, but Terry is kind of letting fans decide on it for themselves. Just say that. Just say, you know what? I thought I'd let the fans use their imaginations. Don't say they didn't have no time. Because what would that have taken? 37 seconds? The same way you wrapped up everything that happened after the Enterprise was triumphant over the Borg cube. You wrap that up in 2 lines in Riker's captain's log. two sentences. You mean to tell me you couldn't spare one more sentence to say, and Picard told Laris to fuck off? You know that? I mean, that shucks. I don't know.
You know what I was going to say? One of the things you guys had touched on earlier, a lot of the reasons we're getting a lot of these hanging story threads is because when you look at Picard, they had different showrunners for almost each season. So the first season, it was Michael Chabon, is that what we pronounce? Yeah. And somebody else doing it. Then the next season, it was mostly him. And then this season, the third season, it was Terry Matalas. So when you jump from showrunner, they all have their own idea of what they want to do.
Now, wasn't Terry Matalas a showrunner in season 2, though?
Yes and no. So what I heard is season 2 and 3 were kind of done concurrently, and they each went off and told their own story. So I think Terry was involved in episode 1 of season 2, like as far as creatively, and then he went off to do season 3 at the same time as they were breaking season 2. So I think that he was basically involved, but not really creatively, or at least not. It wasn't his vision. His vision was season 3.
Yeah.
And then it makes sense that it's a hodgepodge of just.
Look at Discovery. I mean, we had the first 2 people, and I don't remember their name, but it was the guy and the girl, and the one guy who was a co-creator, he got let go.
Brian Fuller.
Yeah, and I put a record. He was the one that changed the Klingons. They always throw that on what's the name? The head of all Star Trek, Alex Kurtzman. But it was Fuller who decided to change the Klingon.
And honestly, I think what they were trying to do was piggyback off of the movies and the way those Klingons look, because they have a different in the J.J. Abrams movies. Yeah, they have a different look in that movie. So they're trying to forge their own way. But look, that we're trying to establish that this universe is supposed to be cohesive. So if this is supposed to be a cohesive in television universe, those Klingons shouldn't have changed.
No.
Unless we're going to introduce that there are, the Klingons have a system of planets and that they evolve differently on different planets within that system. If you want to establish that, and I'm all for it, but you got to at least say it, and then we'll be like, okay. Justin said, I agree. Laris could have been on the shuttle with Beverly and Jack, so Terry could have got it done. I'm Team Laris. Just anything is better than we ain't had time. Clarence said they should have introed the new Klingons alongside. Yes.
Oh, there you go. Well, that's how they ended up doing the Romulans with the 2 different ridges. They ended up explaining that like Summer from the North or whatever.
Because they had all of the, we were talking about the sarcophagus ship and all of this stuff. They had all of these Klingons being represented in all of the houses. They could have had just some regular looking Klingons and some without the ridges at all. Because
that would have been great. Just throw one of them in the background or something. Yep. No ridge Klingon.
Yeah.
Throw them all together.
Yeah, because that'll just show us that there are, Yeah, that there were so many different kinds. Yeah. You're not part of Section 31. Okay, so speaking of Section 31, let me go back over here to our poll to see if we got anything. Oh, we're locked up. We're deadlocked again. Which is the most controversial Trek moment? It's a tie between In the Pale Moonlight and the existence of Section 31. So somebody will come along, hopefully, and break the tie. So many people are in agreement, though. In the Pale Moonlight and Section 31 are problems. Well, I wouldn't call them problems, but they're controversial. So speaking of which, y'all ready to talk about some controversy? And
Yes.
I'm ready to. Okay, so I'm going to share Clarence's responses, and then if nobody hits some of the ones that I've got listed, we'll come back and talk about it. We're going to talk about y'all's first, though. So we talked about Clarence's first on his list was the Vulcan hello about the different looks for the Klingons. So what do you got first? Let's go Wingrace first.
So should I go start with the big one, I guess, or should I save?
Well, say the big one for last. Let's do things, build up to stuff.
So I'm gonna. All right, let me take this back. So we were talking about the J.J. Abrams films, which I personally like 2009, the first one, quite a bit as an alternate universe thing. But the one thing that I'm dead set against having to keep in canon ever since is that Romulan supernova and basically decimating the Romulan population. Because in my opinion, we never really got that real grand Romulan story we needed. And now in the Prime universe, they're all but gone. So I think that was a creative decision that kind of kneecapped stories that we could tell with the Romulans going forward, and it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth, even though I like the film that it's coming from as an alternate universe thing.
Okay, I guess I can agree with that. That you pretty much stymied the entire species for future movies, unless they're gonna do some crazy retcon stuff. Which again, that's gonna even be crazy. So, what you got, Larry?
Okay. Well, I'm going to start out with one that I hadn't thought about because I know a lot of people are probably going to put Tuvix on the list, but I'm going to give one. And this title, I am not sure I know how to say the title, Simulator or whatever, but it's the character of Sim. The character he was created like a clone of Trip.
Yeah,
that was extremely controversial because you created it, and I know Phlox wanted to harvest the necessary tissue or whatever from it, but then it grew into a child, and it grew up, and they got to watch it grow up. And they got to know him grow up, and here he is, an adult. He doesn't want to die. That's extremely because that hits you like, is it right for Archer and them then to force him to give his life to save Trip?
and if we're being realistic, no, it's not right. But these captains were making some decisions in these shows that were just completely outside of, well, I can't say outside of the realm of belief because we're seeing stuff happen now. This is how prescient Star Trek has always been. But I'm in agreement with you, and the fact that those episodes, maybe not Tuvix, but definitely the one with Trip, we were seeing a lot of parents who had children with developmental issues that they already had these kids here. They've got leukemia and they need somebody to have to have the bone marrow transplant. So they have another child
I watched
just
that
to
movie
do this.
recently.
So yeah.
Well.
So these were things that were really happening, again, controversial, but pulled straight from the headlines. So yes, I can agree with that.
And I think that's a lot better of an episode than the Tuvix episode because there's actual real complications behind the reasons for doing this, because this was during the Xindi arc. So if they don't do this transplant to save the real Trip or original Trip, that could potentially spell the end of the entire Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Tuvix was just she wanted her friends back.
Yeah. It's like, yeah,
But
you're
that was
fine and
my
all, but you got to go. Get on back, get on up there on that replicator pad.
and I loved it. They used it too. One of the great things, this wasn't common back then, and it is now, but they used a cold opening because we see them at his funeral
That's
in the
right.
beginning, and we just see Trip. And of course, we think it's Trip. Then they
Yeah.
start the episode.
And then we find out. Yeah, that was a good one. And it is. That's so heartbreaking. You're right. But those people were, and I'm not saying that they stopped doing it. People were still doing it. They're probably still doing it today. But that was the first time I guess I was confronted with it in such a personal way. You know, it's one thing to read an article about some people at their home making a decision for their family. It's something entirely different to see, even though this is a character that I have come to care about in Trip Tucker. It does it make it right to create something that you know there's a potential that this thing is going to die just so you can keep this other one alive, and even but the ends justify the means, I suppose.
Or at least that's the question we're presented with.
Right.
And it gives us something to think about.
Give
Did
us
you
a
ever
little
see
bit more to think about. Right.
the movie The Island? Have you ever seen that?
Yes.
The Island?
Love that movie.
I don't think I've seen that.
It's
Yeah,
a
you and
similar
McGregor
concept,
and
but it's
Who's in
more.
it?
It's young Scarlett Johansson, I think.
you
Okay.
and McGregor.
Yeah, it might be around the same time that came out, but it's more of an action-y version of it.
Okay, I'm gonna put that in my notes. Maybe one of these
That
days
was,
I'll get to watch
gosh,
it.
that was good. That was my first introduction to Scarlett Johansson, really, before the MCU thing
Mhm.
really popped off, because I didn't know about all her acting as a kid.
Yeah, that might be my first or something else that I forgot about, but that's a movie no one talks about, and I think it's Michael Bay. That might be why. But
Yeah.
Oh, we blowing stuff up. Is that what you're telling me? Okay.
Oh yeah, Michael Clark Duncan's in that too. That's right.
Huh?
Yeah.
Michael Clark Duncan's also in it.
Yes, he is.
Oh, okay.
God rest his soul. That man was
Yeah.
awesome.
Okay, so Clarence's second one was In the Pale Moonlight for obvious reasons. that's his answer. Obvious reasons. And so is anybody, but before we move on, is everybody, does everybody have that on their list?
Yeah.
It's In the Pale Moonlight on everybody's
Yeah.
list. Because it's on mine as well. Just the committing what we now know ended up being a war crime in order to win the war. And Cisco is like, I'm good with it too. Morally questionable, yes, but it's the same type of scenario that we just talked about with Trip. It's like, does the ends justify the means? And you know what? It was a whole lot easier for me to say, yes, the ends justify the means when it was Cisco. Now, that's just because of the relationship, again, that I've got with this character. I got a whole different relationship. By this time, it was, season 6 of DS9. I got an entirely different relationship with Cisco than I have with Trip Tucker.
Mm-hmm.
So when Cisco made this very morally questionable decision, or he was able to live with all of the bad that came out of him doing this, I didn't question it as much as I probably should have. And that's fucked up. That's messed up. Because go ahead.
It was an impossible situation, because here's, on the one hand, we know the Dominion is going to go after the Romulans after they deal with us. We all know that.
Right.
And they're going to beat down the Klingons. They're going to take out the Federation. Then they're going to go after the Romulans. That's just what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't know that. But we know that. Yeah. Okay. So if I do nothing, then everybody dies. if I tell the Romulans and I tell a lie, and me and Garrick do this, even though he didn't know he was
Right.
being part of this, it's still a deception. And the thing that got me was basically, well, if I don't do it, millions of people, billions may die. If I do it, yeah, a whole lot of Romulans are gonna die under false pretenses.
And
So now, would you do it?
of course I would. I just told you.
I would do it.
I'm listening to Cisco anyway.
I would do it, but I would need serious therapy
Oh yeah. I wouldn't
forever.
just have been able to sit there and take a sip out of my drink and say it. I'm good with it too. No. You know, it's a perfect illustration of how once you start telling a lie, this lie just snowballs out of control. You got to tell 3, 4, 5 more lies to cover this lie, and then it ends with somebody getting murdered, and Cisco is good, but I think he's lying to himself.
He was.
But in that episode, when I can remember, I can't tell you that this was the first time I watched it, and this is my first feeling. But at a point, I was like, if he good, I'm good. And that's messed up, because you start thinking about where we are societally now, where all it takes is the person in power that you like the most to say something, and you like, well, I'm good with that, even though you know that it's wrong. It's two left shoes. That is like we got a whole society of me when I was 20, and I was a messed up person. So yeah, that's bothersome. What else? What part of In the Pale Moonlight stood out the most to you, Win Grace?
I mean, obviously the log is kind of the one that's and the it's a lie. Those are
Yeah.
kind of like the meme moments, but
It's a lot.
or it's a fake. Sorry, yeah. But I don't know. Just I think the Garrick, that confrontation between Cisco and Garrick, where he's like Cisco's kind of really mad at him,
Mm-hmm.
but then Garrick's like, "Well, you should have known this would happen if you
What
came.
did you expect for me to do?
Pretty sure this is what you wanted, boss."
Right. He's like, you
And
knew
then
I
he's
was.
like, he took that little. It's like, huh. Like, okay, he knows what's going on, and now and something someone brought up, and I wish I could remember the actual details, is the episode prior to this, I believe, because this takes place across multiple days, weeks. I don't know how long the episode actually takes. There's a moment in that episode where someone's talking to Cisco about trying to figure out their own issues. It might even be the one with Sloan and Bashir trying to figure out if Section 31's okay. And he was dealing with this at the same time he was giving advice. So if you kind of view them together, you could see that he was dealing with the same thing at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of this nice evolution of a character, because we do know where it's going if he doesn't follow through here. Eventually it's going to be the Romulans in their little quiet corner by themselves while everything else is on fire.
Right. And as if the one thing that the Romulans would have had, even though they still would have lost, they would have, like Batman, you would have you want to be Batman, or you want to be Batman with preparation time. And that's what the Romulans would have had. They would have had some preparation time, but they still would have lost. So it was in their best interest to be down with the cause anyway. They wouldn't have ever admitted it, but yeah, it was in their best interest. The third one, or this is actually 2 episodes that Clarence has next: Timeless and Endgame.
Oh, okay.
Star Trek Voyager. First off, these are episodes he absolutely loves, but he always questioned future selves returning to correct a wrong in the past. Another layer to Endgame is that future Borg Janeway should have 1000% been on that Borg cube. Wouldn't a future Janeway been more appealing than a son of Locutus? You tell me. So, third, or does anybody else have Timeless and Endgame on their list?
I don't.
I
Timeless
didn't.
was the one. Was that the one with the doctor?
That's the one where what's his name? Tuva, no, Chakotay and Kim
Come
got
back
back
and
That's
home, but
right.
the rest
They
of the
go
Voyager
back. That's right. And they go back to correct. And Jordy was the captain
right.
yes,
in
because he
that one.
directed the episode, which I didn't
Mhm.
realize at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those two, I actually thought of Endgame, but I didn't think of Timeless. Timeless would not have made my list. But that is
I
actually a
didn't
very good choice.
I didn't have him on my list, but I did have a side note of just wasted potential in Voyager, not
Mhm.
sticking with consequences. So kind of similar to that.
Justice says, I always loved Cisco and still do, but I was yelling at the screen, you betrayed your uniform. But I understood it. Crazy thing, I didn't even, I'm telling you, from what I can remember, I don't even remember giving it a second thought. Cisco said it was okay, and I just went on about my business. Oh man, it blew up in the shuttle and everything.
Yep.
Okay,
Main character
so
said it's good. We're good.
right, that's the one I'm gonna have to see next week. So I got to be on board with him. Um, Larry, what's your next one?
Okay. Well, I had of course, the one that everybody had. And now this one is one that a lot of people may or may not think is controversial. I think it's very controversial because I think it speaks to the war machine that exists in the real world, and that is Star Trek: The Undiscovered Country, where you basically have the Klingons and the Federation who have members in each organization who do not want peace, and they sabotage it. Like, that's some real work. Like, and I think a lot of it was due to the fact that we don't want to deal with these people. We don't want to deal with you either. These people are basically soft and they want to, bend the knee. So the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to fight each other. We're going to, they assassinated their own chancellor. Okay. They in the Federation, remember, the Starfleet officers are just as dirty, which is why I'm glad they didn't make that Savick. It was supposed to be Savick, but they changed it and
Mm-hmm.
made it a different character. Because they were going to kill the president. Can't kill Kirkwood Smith, my man. But they were going to kill the Federation president,
Oh gosh.
Federation officers.
And
They were okay with it. That's controversy. That's like, wow.
I can completely agree with you that the optics of this whole thing was just so bad. So incredibly bad. But you had it wasn't one person, it was a contingent of people, and that's all it takes is to make it not only a controversy, a conspiracy. You have a whole
Thank
conspiracy.
you. A conspiracy,
Hmm.
a coup d'etat.
They want to keep it the way it is because that's what they understand. That's the world they know how to deal with.
It lends to, and I hope this ain't on nobody's list because I'm gonna throw it out there, because it piggybacks Homefront, Paradise Lost, DS9, that two-part episode where that was he an admiral. It-
Admiral Eaton. Yeah.
yeah, he decided he was gonna, I'm gonna do a coup. I've got a bunch of people who, when I say jump, they say how high. They're going to do what I ask them to do. As long as I say it's for the greater good, they're all for it. Which goes back to what we were just talking about with the last episode. But yeah, um, he
Uh,
same thing. We're going to do a coup
yeah.
because we got to be ready for these changelings.
And my own perspective on this, not trying to go too much in the real world, but here's what I always said, the old saying, be careful who you hitch your wagon to,
Mm-hmm.
because you may think like you agree, you and this person are on the same page, and this person may be way more extreme.
Mm-hmm.
Because remember, Kirk said to Cartwright, Of course, we love that actor, of course. Um, um, and he says, I'm forced to agree with Admiral Cartwright. You know, this is terrifying, the Romulans in Federation space. He didn't realize, like, I don't like Klingons, I apologize. I don't like the Klingons. And Cartwright is of the mind, yeah, I want to kill all of them.
Right, just genocide.
Like, no, we are not in the same ballpark here.
Right. And I agree. And Reinhardt, Justin is in agreement with you as well. That's a great pick. And it's so true about the real world, and Homefront is a great tie-in. So yeah, all of those things, you know, we consider now, I guess, we didn't even consider it. We probably considered it more controversial back then than we do now. Now we're just seeing how Star Trek catches up to where we are every single time. If it doesn't make a commentary or social commentary in that present moment, Star Trek catches up to the times that we're in every single time. So here we are. What you got for me, Wayne Grace? Good thoughts.
So, one thing I did want to mention here is it seems like that's kind of what they were going for within Star Trek Beyond, also with I don't remember his name, whoever Idris Elba played. But it's like they didn't take it far enough. They wanted him to be the peacetime, or the warrior who couldn't deal with peacetime, but then that was kind of just a side note to the story.
Yeah.
So I feel like if they had followed that a little more, obviously any more of him in the movie would have been better. But
yeah.
I think that could have been a great Star Trek 3. I like Beyond for what it is, but it didn't really have that underlying theme that I felt like they wanted to be going for, which was
that's the name.
Oh, that's right. Crawl.
So yeah, that too, because and to be quite honest, Beyond wasn't my favorite, and I think that you put your finger on the reason why. But just even with the one before that, not Wrath of Khan.
Basically Wrath of Khan.
Wrath Light.
Yeah. Well, you know that there is a special place in my heart for Benedict Cumberbatch. So Benedict Cumberbatch, they had me at him.
He acted the hell out of what he was given.
Yes, I absolutely love.
But I always come back to that moment when he says, "My name is Khan," and why does that mean anything to us?
Right.
The audience, yes. Us, not so much.
Nothing.
And then they even retconned it in the comics, that wasn't his original body. He was like put into a cloned body.
Yeah, I had that.
Of an English guy or whatever.
Really?
The one that I had, they performed surgery on him. Like when he was born, and they changed him because apparently they can change anything about you, including racial features. And they changed him from, because, Khan in the show, he was supposed to be of Indian, Asian origins. And so they changed that too. So I guess he wouldn't be recognizable as a mass murderer from the 20th century.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and I guess I can see that because we watch doctors on the ship in sickbay turn people from humans to Klingons, from humans to the episode that I watched this morning. I can't remember the name of the episode. Is the one where not Voyager, on TNG, when Riker went down to that planet and got jumped in the riots and
oh yeah.
They don't know what he was. They didn't know what he was until they did his DNA, and then they started saying, "Hey, wait a minute."
And Strange New Worlds just retconned that again with the whole gene therapy thing, where it does change you.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, they retconned that completely.
You are right. Yeah, that's what me and the grandson watched that episode this morning, and I'm like, that doesn't work in real life, sir. But where were we? What were we talking about? Because I just got sidetracked. We got sidetracked onto me talking about Benedict Cumberbatch, because that's one of my favorite topics. Okay, so what were you going with Grace, for your next?
Well, this one I'm pretty sure you mentioned to me already, but these are the voyages from Enterprise.
Yeah,
So
we might have mentioned it, but I didn't expound upon it. So, and that's on my list. That's on my list as well. So
it's
you go ahead.
pretty
Tell me
pretty.
what you think about it.
So here's where I fall. I thought it was a good episode had it been just placed, as like an anniversary episode or something, minus the death of Trip part. That I didn't really feel was earned. There's quite a few retcons for that. I know the books did a whole Section 31 undercover thing. I think it's more plausible that this was just the Riker holodeck program had that in there to tell the ending he needed for his personal journey. And it wasn't necessarily the end events of the episode, especially since in the third season of Picard, we saw the refit NX-01. So that's now canonized, which means it didn't retire in the original format. So I know that's a convoluted way of saying maybe it's not real.
Yeah, I don't think that's real
Well,
either.
I feel like it wasn't fair. It wasn't fair to Enterprise. It wasn't fair to the cast. It wasn't fair to the fans. It was just, had it been even the episode prior to the real finale,
Yep.
it would have been a nice celebration, but it just left everything on a sour note for a series that deserved a lot better.
I agree. And do you guys watch the Shuttle Pod podcast?
I do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Dominic Keating
when they had Riker, when they had Jonathan Frakes on there last week before, he said the exact same thing. He's like, it wasn't fair. It was messed up. In that moment, he didn't think about how screwed up this was, but we shit on y'all ending, him. And, he was like, they called us back. Who's going to say no to a payday? We were getting paid. Of course we were going to come back. He was like, but in hindsight, he would not have done it again. And I appreciate the fact that he was able to, and this ain't the first time he said it in the presence of these of Connor Trenier and Dominique Keaton. Obviously, they've talked about this before because it was like he said it before.
Mm-hmm.
But to say it again publicly, I apologize for basically stepping on y'all ending. And I agree. And I think that the one thing that we should get for Enterprise is a proper ending. We need something to close that arc off. I thought they could have done it in a way in this Picard, but then would that have been fair to Picard? Because that we're doing the exact same thing that I just was talking about how I didn't like. But yeah, I can agree. These are the voyages was a slap in the face as a series finale.
You know how I feel, Tasha. And Wingrace, you probably saw our stream that what we were talking about. You don't kill the main characters. You don't do it. Because you know what? They kill Trip. And like you said, I'm with you, Wingrace. I read all the books and stuff. I even have the comic where they brought him back and he's an agent for Section 31. It made no sense and it added nothing to the story. Because Trip was one, and I have to be selfish, Trip was one of my favorite characters on that show.
I agree.
And it wasn't even done in a super heroic way. I mean, it was kind of heroic, but it's like you just got electrocuted in the corner or whatever.
Right.
Rush.
Something that he survived so many times. Things like this we have seen happen in so many different ways with characters, and this killed him, and there was no bringing him back. There was no, it was just he's gone. I didn't like that.
Right after the episode where he lost his kid, although I know there was a time jump, but it's like a double slap.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't even think about it like that.
Yeah, we tried to brutalize T'Pol and Trip.
You're right. Can you lose anything more? Clarence was saying, good observation to Larry. They could have been doing that all along with the genetics, but we just didn't know it. Chris, hey there, Chris. How goes it? And Rick, you know what? Chris told me to watch the Rick Berman episode of the Shuttle Pod podcast. And you know which one I sat down and rewatched? The Ira Stephen Bear. So I still haven't seen the Rick Berman one. I have to go back and watch it. Rick also says, well, sometimes people die. It hurt me, but that was the point, right? I mean, it okay. I can see that in the situation that they were in, especially, and I can even see it in they had no idea that this resurgence of Star Trek was going to come along. So to them, this was it. We might as well go out on a bang and kill somebody. But now I guess we should learn that moving forward, you don't want anybody important, and I guess anybody important shouldn't die because in 20 years you don't know there could be another push for more Star Trek, and then these are these people's favorite characters that you've killed off. And I agree with that, Rick. I wish they would stop bringing everything back. Right. You must watch it. He addressed the whole reason behind the last episodes. I am going to get into it because Chris told me to watch that one, and I watched the wrong one. I watched Ira Stephen Bear, and he can be a bit negative. He's a very, while he's a talented writer, he focused on so much of the negative, and they talked to him for like an hour and a half. And I'm like, this is an hour and a half of heavy conversation from Ira Stephen Bear. But obviously he had some gripes, and he was airing them.
Well, he had to fight Rick Berman tooth and nail. And he was one of the few people willing to do it.
Well, that's probably why he's carrying all this baggage with him right now. He's trying to get it off his chest all these years later. Yeah. Clarence said, and similarly, they are in the time frame that is so far removed from other Trek. Isn't Discovery in the same boat now? Yes. Worse, actually, for Discovery.
I agree.
Yeah, they can't. We will never catch them going a decade at a time with a series. We will never catch. Not in my lifetime. We won't catch Discovery all the way in the 32nd century. We at least have an opportunity to see maybe the end of Archer's presidency at some point in Strange New Worlds or somewhere they can make that happen. They should make it in a movie or something.
Didn't the novels or something indicated that Archer died the day Kirk's Enterprise was launched or something like that?
I don't know.
I think they meant something.
I don't remember that.
Oh my gosh. Well, if you guys know, put that in the chat. That's a good trivia question. Rick says, if no one ever dies, how can we worry? Oh my gosh. That's the whole thing. I don't want to worry.
I got one for that, Rick, because right now we're watching a great show called Strange New Worlds. And we know for a fact that there are Uhura and Spock and Chapel are not going to die. We know that.
And M'Benga.
Yeah, and M'Benga, my boy, love him.
Pike ain't dying either, yeah.
Because here's the reason. And Pike's not going to die. Technically, he's going to be.
Well, we know what happens to Pike, yeah.
But we know what's going to happen. And the show is still great, right? Mm-hmm. So, yes, that's true. But if you do the show well enough, and I think you can get by that. I mean, like we said, killing off Himmer, that was a whole thing. But you got a whole show. It's kind of like we said, they're playing it safe in some ways because we got a bunch of people on this show, no matter what situation they're in, they ain't going to die. We know.
Right. Right. And I think that I think it would take courage to build up a character and get us attached to a character, and then to kill the character off and make us live with the absence of the character. I think that takes a lot of courage, and a lot of people will not agree with me. Even though I hated the decision, it took a lot of courage to kill Jadzia Dax. It took very little courage to bring another Dax in. But it took a lot of courage for us to see the end of Jadzia Dax and to also know that the next episode is coming and she's not going to be there. And the episode after that, she's still not going to be there. You know what I mean? That takes courage after we get after we get, a degree of love for a character.
I think on that part though, Tasha, I think that was sour grapes
Yeah,
more than
they tried to make sure
than
she wasn't
courage.
coming back.
Because if you listen to Terry Farrell tell it, she said, "Man, I'm open to come back and reprise the character and stuff. You don't have to kill the character." And they're like, "Nope, we gonna kill her."
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that was just being low down.
Yes.
However, it did make us, I do believe that it takes courage to do it. And I believe that, in the right situation with the right character, it could be momentous. The killing off Trip in the last episode of the series in such an inconsequential way did not take any guts at all to me.
It was just for the shock of it, basically.
Yeah.
And to make the last episode feel like it meant something. I don't know.
And Chris says the Irish Stephen Bear episode was good too. Yeah, he talked for a long time and he was really not very happy for most of that conversation. Clarence says, or it could be Game of Thrones and you could constantly be worried. Yeah. I guess anybody could. I didn't watch Game of Thrones, by the way, but my understanding is that anybody could get it.
Start House of the Dragon because it's only one season.
Yeah, that's what people were telling me. Might as well start at the beginning if I'm going to watch it now. Okay, Rick is saying that's fair. And by the way, I got a Discord. And if you have not yet done so, the link's in the description. Join the Discord and you can be part of the conversation after the shows. Justice says, when Grace, I believe it was when Robert April took command of the Enterprise when Archer passed. Okay. I don't know what, like Tasha. Tasha Yar, not this Tasha. Tasha Yar, yeah.
Except they even kind of undid that, sort of.
And Chris says that the producers' egos were what killed Jadzia. I can see, yep. Clarence says also, let's be happy they didn't kill Crusher, or else it would be a very different TNG, right? The baby's mama would have been Pulaski. Oh, Justice says that Jadzia's death was heartbreaking. It absolutely was. Broke my heart. She was one of my favorite characters in DS9. In Trek, actually. And then Rick says, Berman said he had to squeeze his plans for 2 years into 8 weeks. Whoa. Yeah, because he thought he was getting another. Yeah, they thought they were going to get another bite at the apple and didn't happen. Okay.
And I think Shran was supposed to be a main character in that season.
I'm doing an episode. I'm doing a review because I've chosen my next set of episodes for Trek by Number. So I'm a little bit ahead of what you guys have seen in the videos. And that was in my script that yes, we were supposed to get Shran on the bridge with them as an advisor or something of the sort.
I still think they could do that today. Set it in current time and have like the first fully integrated Federation ship.
Yeah, and wouldn't that be
humans,
nice?
Tellarites, Andorians, and bring back whatever Enterprise cast you can get in various roles. But they won't.
Nice. No, they won't. Next thing on the list here for clearance was Space Seed, which I probably should have just piggybacked off of who we were just talking about. Khan.
Yeah.
Kirk drops all charges against Khan and his people, considering it a waste to put Khan in a penal colony, and gives him the offer of taming the uninhabited world of Ceti Alpha 5, an offer which Khan accepts, referencing a quote from Milton's Paradise Lost that it is better to rule in hell than to serve in heaven. As soon as Khan and his people leave, Kirk and Spock expressed an interest in returning to Ceti Alpha 5 in 100 years to learn what crop will sprout from the seed they planted. And then we get the Wrath of Khan. from that, the Wrath of Khan is born. So
it didn't take 100 years either.
Nope. Like, oh, y'all early. Y'all came back early. Okay, so what did you guys got next? Or did anybody else have a Space Seed on your list?
I did.
I didn't think of that one.
What you got next? We'll start with Win Grace this time.
Um,
Or do you have? Let me know if you've got anything left because
I've got some things here.
Okay.
A couple of them are more esoteric, not episode based. But
Okay.
I'm going to go Generations, and not a specific thing from Generations because there's several things from Generations that were controversial, but mostly just a lot of what they were trying to do there, I suppose. Obviously, with the whole destruction of the Enterprise D wasn't necessarily a controversial thing, but it was. I mean, obviously people had an issue with it. It made sense, but for the time being, the storyline, what they did with Kirk specifically, again, similar to the D, we've seen that kind of tried to be walked back on a little bit recently. So I just think there was a lot of things that went into that movie that kind of didn't split the fandom in such a way as Discovery did, but they kind of took a left turn that some people may not have come back from. It was like the end of an era for the TV show, and then it went to the film universes, which took a whole different approach to things.
The Generations made my list, but I was laser focused on the death of Kirk. I didn't. As Clarence says, and I'm catching that out of the corner of my eye. It was another death that wasn't needed. We could have let Kirk ride out into the sunset, off into the sunset, and whatever. We didn't. Not saying that it was. We can either kill him and be okay with him being gone instead of 30 years later saying, "Oh, we wasn't okay with that. Now we're going to try to bring him back." But I don't think it was a necessary death, and I think that was a divisive thing in the fandom. As far as the other issues that you raise, that there could have been several things wrong with Generations. I can agree with that as well. It's been a very long time. Wait a minute, I think I watched Generations this year, but I don't ever remember the movies like I do the TV shows because I keep watching those. So from what I can see, it wasn't like I'm not so attached to that movie, but the characters and some of the choices that were made, I didn't particularly. I didn't like.
I would have preferred not having an end to Kirk.
Right.
Like never mentioning it on screen. I know a lot of people wanted a definitive ending, but to just undiscovered country, he's out there,
part of the mythos. Yep.
Who knows?
A beautiful tribute from the Roddenberry archives too, by the way, which I was supposed to mention. I was supposed to mention that last week and forgot. Did you guys see that tribute from the Roddenberry archives for Kirk?
Yes.
From Spock? Man,
it was nice.
You talk about powerful. That was beautiful. I did enjoy it, and I forgot to talk about it last week, and I forgot to talk about it. I was going to forget to talk about it this week, so thank you, Clarence. Christopher says Bird of Prey would have never been able to take out the Enterprise D. That Bird of Prey. Okay, Larry?
Okay, mine is here. And again, y'all have to help me with the episode title. I think it's the title of the ship. I think it's Equinox.
Yes. Voyager.
Okay, that just popped in my head. Okay, controversy. What Janeway straight up did, putting that dude, the one officer, putting him in there and going to let the trans-dimensional beings kill him. And Chakotay had to step in. Okay, that's controversy. Okay, because she had done lost it. Like, let's be honest, when Chakotay, she tells him at the end, you could have he would have been well within his rights to remove her from command. Because she went over the line on that.
But we're going against, wasn't that another Starfleet ship?
Yeah. But remember, this is a captured combatant.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't say what you would do, but he's your prisoner. And you
Yeah.
basically are torturing him by going, hey, you tell me what I want. I'm going to let these creatures kill you.
You know what?
Okay, well, you sit in here and they'll kill you.
You're
And
right, but this is
Chakotay
another one of
stepped
those
in and
things where I was like, yeah, it's okay. If Janeway says it's all right, do it. Even though
I
I knew.
totally looked at Janeway. I was like, okay, she has lost her marbles right now. And because she herself, she didn't do anything as horrendous as what those people did.
No.
But she did some messed up stuff to get her crew home. And she broke the rules quite a few times.
And that's what I'm saying. Like with her, is there any exception? Because at this point, you one ship, and I know that just because when you know what's right, when you know right from wrong, you should always do what's right. So, but should she be held to a different standard? She was in a very hostile environment, and she was far away from Starfleet and their ideals. Should she
There's
have
a
been expected to?
there's a great quote from, I think it's Year of Hell, and I don't remember the exact quote, where something similar happens and the doctor basically says, I'm going to relieve you of duty. You're unfit for command right now. I'm the chief medical officer. Go away. you're not. And she's like, I'd like to see you try. I'm only out of command if I let myself be out of command. Now, obviously, Year of Hell was undone, but there's something to be said. She said something here like, put me on report, court martial me. I'll do all of this when we're back safely at home, when my crew and us are at home, safe in our beds on Earth or whatever. Then you can throw all these charges at me. But until we're home, I'm doing what we need to do to get us there.
My next episode of Trek by Numbers, by the way, is covering not these episodes. It's covering Night and Voyager's season 5, episode 1, and we see her. And I'm not going to give too much away because I went way into it in the review, but we see her struggling with some things in this episode, and I think that she should be, if nobody else should be given the leeway for not following the Prime Directive, she should be. Would I have said this 10 years ago? Probably not. But now, and the way I look at it, Janeway faced some issues that no other captain had to do, because at the end of the day, at least they had Starfleet to kind of lean on there. She had nothing, no one, nobody. They had to forge their own. I think Janeway deserves a little, just a tiny bit. Not what she was gonna do to that man in Equinox. I don't think she should have went that far.
Yeah.
But I do believe she should be given a little more leeway than the other captains.
Yeah. And see, I love Janeway, and that's why that one stood out to me as controversial.
Way out.
Janeway, now every captain had their freak out moment. You had Kirk, when he went at Spock and Bones about what happened, him being a kid and seeing all those murders on that planet, right? Remember that one? It's where they had the murder, was trying to kill the witnesses.
Oh, yes.
So he went off. You had Picard go off about the Borg, and what was it? The best one, Next Gen.
Family?
First Contact.
The movie.
Where him and Althea Woodard, and he's going off. Of course, you had Cisco go off multiple times on stuff like that. And Archer, of course, went off the handle many a time. So I think that's why that stuck out to me, because I love Janeway so much, and that was so out of character.
She was ready to she was ready to go. Well, Clara says Chakotay kept Janeway in check several times, which is so weird. Chakotay being the Maquis. and I think they forgot where these characters started at, because if anything, Chakotay would be like, see, I can understand why you want to go there, because I went there. But anywho, Rick says, I think as long as you wear the uniform, you hold to the ideals of the Federation. And I can see why you would say that. That's why I'd be like, you know what? We ain't got to wear no uniforms out here in the Delta Quadrant. We just out here. and she killed Tuvix, which we talked about Tuvix, almost talked about Tuvix. We talked about Trips clone. We didn't talk about
Right.
Tuvix. And then Clarence says, my favorite Picard scene. You broke your little ships. So there's, in agreement that the first contact thing kind of ties back in, and that Janeway might have stepped outside of herself when she was gonna let them things eat that man alive. What you got? What you got, Win Grace?
Oh, well, I want to go back to that point actually, if you wear the uniform, because that's one of the parts I actually liked that was kind of subtle in Picard season 3, is after they were fugitives, they took off their uniforms. They were wearing those like casual jackets or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I actually kind of thought that was a nice touch. I know doesn't actually amount to anything, but it's just these nice little moments.
Yeah, they like, well, maybe now that we're breaking all the rules. Let's not wear these uniforms. Let's not taint the uniform.
Right.
But as far as I already talked about that one, so I'll save my big one. But one thing that's annoying to me, and maybe just me, is when they got rid of the original timeline novel universe to replace it with the ones that are more in line with the new shows. Now, obviously, they should make novels that are in line with the new shows, but to end the previous one, the one that everyone kind of enjoyed and were following for 25 years or whatever, where there was nothing really new going on, I thought that was kind of a poor choice and a poor decision. Why not let them both kind of keep going on their own course?
What you got for that, Larry? Because I'm on the outside looking in when we're talking about the novel.
I will say this, and I say this about Star Trek Picard. Remember when we did the and I know Wing Grace, you were watching, and I know Tasha, you were part of. Remember what I said? How they took stuff from everywhere. They took that also from the novel, and Wing Grace probably knows what I'm talking about. When Voyager, the Homecoming novels that were done, I think, by Christie Golden, but perfect novels. They had that whole thing where they basically turned people into Borg, but in that they used a virus or whatever that would assimilate everybody. Mm-hmm. Sort of kind of similar to that. So I agree with him, because a lot of those novels were absolutely amazing. And then they started retconning all the stuff to match the newer shows. Kind of like Star Wars. Let's be honest. Star Wars did the same thing.
And Justin is here agreeing too. I 100% agree. The books were awesome and hated they changed it. So y'all know what y'all talk about with these books, because Lord have mercy. I think I've owned one novel, and I don't even have to read it. All I have to do is listen to it. Got it on an audiobook, and I have not even listened to it yet. It was a Discovery novel, because it's the first one. I really and truly fell in love with the characters. Season 1 of Discovery. Bought the audiobook to listen to while I walk.
Well, Tasha, in case y'all know, yesterday I turned 55.
Oh, happy belated birthday!
Birthday.
No, I did not remember.
Yeah, I can get the senior thing now at Denny's.
What's that?
I can get the senior menu at Denny's now.
Oh, good for you.
But I used to buy the audio books, and Wing Grace, you'll probably love this. You're hearing the old people story. I used to buy the audio books, like the one that continued, the Guardian of Forever, and you would have Leonard Nimoy as the voice of Spock, but for as the rest of the cassette, you would have James Doolan doing the voices of everybody. Didn't matter if they were male or female or whoever. And they were great. I had probably like 14, 15 cassettes of Star Trek book. And let me tell you, when you're making $3.35 an hour, those were a lot.
Wow. Well, shucks. I'm so glad that you reminded us of your birthday, sir. Happy belated. Um, it's very interesting to know about these, audio books. When I say audio book, I'm talking Audible. I'm talking,
That's what I have.
yeah, yeah, now. But when like you said, you had to be dedicated back in the day.
Yeah,
Clarence is asking, haven't the novels always not been completely canon?
true.
Yes. But they ended the ongoing universe of stories to replace it with a new universe, I guess. So I just wish they would have allowed the original universe to still kind of continue as its own thing.
In its own continuity. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, why do you have to end things? There's a possibility for several different timelines to exist at once.
I'll,
So,
t- I'll tell you just this. Michael Jan Free is my favorite writer. He did a group of books called My Brother's Keeper that tells the whole story of Gary Mitchell and Kirk and how they met at the academy and how they became friends and they went on their first assignments. And it's told from the perspective of after Gary had died and Kirk's going home to tell his family. And he's reminiscing about all the things, how he met Gary. And I'm telling you, there were tears hitting the page of that book. That's how, if you should read it, if you never have.
y'all heard it from Reinhardt. He's giving you his endorsement to this book. This set of is it a set of novels?
It's three books in that series, My Brother's Keeper.
All right. Rick was saying those novels were good. It broke my heart when I learned they weren't canon. Justice says the Borg War and the Typhon Pact was great. Was it the Typhoon Pact? The Typhon Pact.
Yeah.
Yes. I know what you're talking about. Yes.
Join the Discord. Links in the description. Everybody say happy birthday to you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Also,
Thank you, everyone.
Rick Jabba is saying
Son.
yesterday.
Rick is one of my favorite people now. He knows what I'm talking about. We're talking about Zar, Spock's son.
Okay.
Speaking of which, those James Doohan read stuff, if you haven't heard the novelization of Relics, his TNG episode, he does the voices in that, and his voice for Data is perfect. I don't think he realized Data was an android, so he reads it like a 1950s robot.
I don't think I remember that one.
It made the rounds on YouTube like a week ago.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
that's timely. Okay, make sure you hit the like button and the subscribe button if you've not yet done so. Justice said, yes, they're not really canon, Clarence, but they were good. The William Shatner return audiobooks. Y'all, for real, y'all talk about these audiobooks. Reinhardt and Wingrace, I'm sure you remember the return series books in Star Trek books.
Mm-hmm. Some wacky stuff happened there.
Which one was that?
That's where Shatner came up with how he returned to life after Generations.
Oh yeah, that you know that's cool when you just you said my character's dead and I say not. That's how it was.
I mean, he wrote several chapters on getting rid of a stump in his front yard.
So he's not one to mince words, is he?
He was not happy.
Clarence's last one here. Let me make sure. Yeah, this is his last one. Code of Honor, Star Trek: The Next Generation. I was talking to Josh earlier this week, and he brought that one up, and I'm like, oh, I forgot about that horrible episode. God, the freaking episode was horrible. But Claire says this episode might be one of the most obviously sexist and racist episodes of Star Trek. In spite of what could be seen as a triumph in flipping the dynamic as the woman being the warrior among the species of alien, the writers should have taken pause at the overall presentation aspects of the episode and reworked some things. It has not aged well.
Well, I'm just gonna say, Star Trek always tries. They don't always succeed. It's just like in the old one, their treatment of women. Say when the Kirk split. Remember, he attacks Rand.
Oh yeah.
He
Yes.
attacks Rand, and they
Mhm.
got 3 officers and 1 woman in a room questioning her with the guy she's accusing of assaulting her, and going, "Yeah, it wasn't him. Are you sure you're all right? Maybe you're mentally compromised." Hasn't aged well.
No, no, no. I agree. Uh, so that made your list win, Grace, or was it an honorable mention?
It wasn't one of my top picks, but I put it on there because kind of have to.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to talk about regarding it. Just, I think
Oh
the
God.
worst part of it is that they made the episode again for Star Trek SG-1. The same,
Oh,
the same writer, the same story.
now I was reading something, and it was saying that okay, initially this species was supposed to be kind of reptilian or something, and then for some reason they said, you know what would be real funny if we make them black. So I don't know. I don't know how we go from being some reptiles because it might have made more sense. And again, um, first and foremost, the whole fight to the death thing. We're doing this to death, and I'm saying we're doing it to death because that is another episode of Enterprise that I'm gonna be doing a review on. I'm writing the review, and I'm like, it just the first sentence of my review is, do you notice how many Star Trek episodes deal with a fight to the death? And there are a lot of them. Okay, so there's that. This very primitive way of solving problems in a warp capable society is just weird to me. But then on top of that, they had these people pretending to be African, or they were influenced by African culture, and but they're advanced, but they're still just a little primitive. And then we got this whole the man says, I'm going to steal this woman and I'll make these 2 women fight to the death, and they were willing to do it. What nobody said, let's kill this man, and everybody lived happily ever after that. So anywho, it was a terrible
That
episode.
that
Yes,
kind of leads into my last one.
tell me about it.
The last one that I had was the kisses. Two kisses.
Okay.
I couldn't decide which one. Of course, the first one is Nichelle Nichols, who I had the pleasure of meeting.
Hmm.
God rest her soul. Um, and William Shatner, Kirk and Uhura, and that kiss. Okay, so that's out of universe, but obviously I did get, when I met Nichelle, I remember her speaking on it, and she said you would have think we got a lot of pushback and stuff on that episode, and she said we really didn't. She
And
said, you know, and of course the other kiss is Jadzia, and the other lady, I always forget her name, but I know she
hmm
had appeared. That was a big one because that in universe and out of universe was a big deal. It's a big unit because we always wondered, if you inhabit multiple bodies, that means if you have children, like we do. Well, I know Tasha and I do. I don't know if you do, Wayne Grace, but if you have children, it means you have to sever ties with your children once the symbiont is put into a new body. That's got to be agonizing.
and I can agree. But the crazy thing is, the first time it couldn't have been the first time I heard it. At some point, I started to conflate those two things, that along with um, a certain religion, and I won't name the religion, where if I was part of that religion and I decided I'm going to walk away, I walk away. I leave. If everything that's still in that religion is over with for me.
I know
So
exactly what you're talking about too.
yeah, it's
Well,
almost it's actually worse than having the symbiont put it put it in you, because at least you have something put in you with all these extra memories and there's all this extra sensory stuff that you would have to work your way through.
But then we
Yeah.
saw if you get the symbiote, you the receiver, the body it's being put into, you can still have a relationship. Because Esri went back home to her family
She
in the
did.
last season of DS9.
She
So it's
did.
only the previous person. The current person is still allowed to. So
Right. And but
yeah,
that's so weird because it's like if because the host that Dax was in was a man at that time, was male, and then the host she was in was female at that time. And I don't even remember, they said if they had children, but once they said you have to leave that previous life behind. I mean, yeah, if you're Dax now, of course you can associate with your family,
Right.
the current
But the
host and
previous
everything.
Dax, the previous host.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that kiss, I really didn't see, and I read Star Trek the magazine and Starlog. I did not really see a whole lot of pushback on that, but apparently there was some.
And honestly, I think that the kiss would have been far more controversial if it were two men.
It would have.
probably.
Yeah, I think that the fact that it was two women is a little sexy to some people. Some of the people who would have naturally complained, it was probably like, "Hey, I'm kind of with this now." But if it would have been two men, I think it would have been far more pushback than the situation. I guess in the moment, it would have warranted at least a conversation, but I don't think it would have been a good conversation. No, it wouldn't have been a good conversation at all. But you're saying that there was some pushback, even though to us it just didn't. It just was like, ooh, two women kissed, ooh, and that's it, But there are some people who really their whole entire identity is tied up in them policing what other people do with their body. And I mean, just who they love.
See,
And
for
and I'll
me,
leave it at that.
it was a Star Trek episode, so I was so wrapped up in the lore of what the Trill are that I didn't really even think anything of it at the time.
And
You know, because
that's the way
this is
you
a
would hope,
multi-generational being, I guess. Whatever.
right? Who? Yeah, these people are they're not
Yeah.
in the story. They're not like us. So they have a whole different way of uh of experiencing love. In this
Jonathan
country.
Frakes said that the episode where Riker falls in love with the person who is they're non-binary or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
in that episode, he said that should have been a man in that instance playing that character, regardless of how the character felt. And he said, and there was just no way they were going to go there. The writers in the studio, he's like, that was not going to happen.
In that era, and it's amazing that we we see growth in society, and at the same time we can see the same type of growth in our TV. So even though Star Trek was ahead of its time in presenting these stories, we know that the story, just like you said, could have been presented a different way, and Star Trek is now ready to present it in that way, and society still is trying to catch up. Yeah,
Yes.
we'll get there. I'm gonna pick some comments up before we go into if we've got some other stuff. But I'm and then I will go into some of the things that weren't mentioned that's on my list. And you guys let me know if you got to go, because we've already been here for 2 hours. Okay, it don't feel like it, but we have. um, Christopher says, "Did anyone read the last year series of books?" So that was
Lost Year.
Reinhardt.
I did, and it was good. It was correct me, it was at the end. Was it their 5-year mission or their second 5-year mission?
Yeah, he said it bridges the gap between
Yeah,
the
it
COS
does.
and the motion picture.
Yeah, and I'll be quite honest, I do not remember a lot of it.
Hey, David, glad you could make it. Rick says in universe, the aliens forced that kiss between Kirk and Uhura. Yeah. David is like, oh, this is an interesting.
That was the only way they were going to do it. It's like,
I'm sorry.
that was the only way they were going to do it, because
Yeah, it had to
you
be.
don't know how hard Gene and Robert Justman had to fight to get that episode.
Justin said, yes, the Lost Years books are good, Christopher. He liked them. And he's speaking to David. Christopher says it was sexy, but not like the ghost candle level of sexy. No, not the ghost candle.
I'm trying to forget that.
That actor came back in Voyager to play a guy in Janeway's hologram.
So, I would have never known. You have to tell me what actor that was. Clarence says, when the writing is great, Star Trek can tell so many beautiful stories, teaching lessons you don't even realize you're learning. I agree with that. Everybody here is, I think pretty much everybody that's on this list today is a supporter in one way or the other. Even though Stream Elements is making me remind me to say support the show, become a member, just hit that join button. Everybody here almost is pretty much a member.
What Clarence said is true, because as a kid, like we all know I'm officially old now.
You're only 5 years older than me, and I'm not old.
And but I remember as a kid, I watched Star Trek, but I watched it. I didn't understand it.
Right.
I watched it. So when I was a little kid, and I remember if they had an episode where phasers and photon torpedoes were not fired, I was like, well, this was a bust.
Look, and I told my crazy story about how I ended up. My parents used to turn Star Trek on to make me go to sleep until 6 or 7-year-old Tasha said, you know what? I'm going to watch this because they want me to go to sleep.
Yeah, but
I watched it and I enjoyed it.
I was probably a teenager, to be quite honest, before I started getting the messages.
Yeah, I don't think I was getting
the moral stories. You know, and then I said, oh, now I understand Star Trek. I'm not just watching it.
Poor Gates. Because of the candle episode. Hit the like button and subscribe. Stream Elements, you're putting them too close together. Where I'm supposed to remind people to do stuff. David said, explain Ghost Candle episode.
Oh dear.
Oh my God.
Who wants to do it?
Not me.
Oh, Clarence did it.
Oh, there we go.
Crusher attends her grandmother's funeral, but a mysterious entity that inhabited her grandmother is now focusing on her. And I mean, let's put it like this: he keeping it in the family. Wink, wink. The name of the episode is Sub Rosa, and it was terrible.
Also, you get to see a sort of zombie grandma fight at the end.
Oh, please no.
That was like really uncalled for. Because you got to remember, Beverly, if you know her backstory, her grandmother raised her after her mom and dad died. Mm-hmm. So that was her mom, basically.
So she was like, yeah, then she said she lost the rubber. She said it in Picard. She lost her entire family to these same stars that you chasing or that own you.
Yeah.
But she lost her mama, her daddy, her son, her
husband.
Whole thing. Yeah. Poor thing. Justin is agreeing with Clarence 100%. Stream Elements is telling me to say something else, and I'm not going to do it because Stream Elements, you're doing it too fast. You should give me a second. So what are we talking about? Does anybody have anything else?
I had one big one left.
Give me the big one.
Yes.
And the bird from Discovery.
Oh, how could I have not put that on my list? We talked about this. You are so right. That is the big one. The burn broke my heart. It broke
might literally be one of the biggest of a show that I loved. That might be one of the biggest letdowns for a season finale ever.
Oh gosh. Well, it wasn't the season finale, thank
It
God.
wasn't, but you know what I mean. When the
But,
reveal came in,
It was close. They drew it out
yeah,
for
we had what,
months.
2 more episodes? Because remember, the season finale almost made that shit worse. Wasn't that the one that had all them different levels inside the ship between the we? It was like it was just a mess.
Not to mention, I also hate the Orion makeup that they brought in for this show.
yeah,
Yeah, I
that
like the makeup better for when we saw the Orion and Picard than definitely than we saw
yes, a
that look.
lot better looking.
Yeah, yeah.
But that almost felt like a waste of a season. I mean, at that point.
Yeah,
it did.
because the
And
things that we were
what
going
were our
to
opinions?
Oh, I'm sorry.
What were we saying? We had all kind of cool theories. We came up
Yeah,
with cooler theories than the writers
you
did
just took the
because
words
we
out of
were
my
like,
mouth. I was just about to say that same
what
thing.
did we say? It was because of that episode where they said that
The
the
Omega
warp
particle.
fields were causing damage
Oh
to
yeah.
the right, and then we said it was the Omega particles, and it was a kid throwing a tat. Don't get me wrong, it was awful what happened to him.
So I rewatched that episode before doing this, where they encounter him, and there was so many good concepts behind that kid having to live in a simulated world after his family had died and never experiencing anything outside basically a holodeck. But they didn't go the right direction with it. And that could have made for a great Star Trek episode, but they focused on the wrong parts.
They just and they made it that what they were hinging the entire season upon. You know, like you said, it might have made a great Star Trek episode, not a season. So yeah. Justin says we don't talk about the bird. We're supposed to be getting t-shirts that says that on there. We don't talk about the bird. if you guys have watched Encanto, where we don't talk about Bruno, we don't talk about the bird. Clarence says, I don't hate the bird, but what a letdown. No, I hate the bird. And if you analyze it, it's almost a perfect Star Trek explanation. I agree, it's a very Star Trek explanation. But boy, did it land very badly. Yes, because they made a whole season out of it. If it would have just been an episode, I think we all would have been like, that sounds like some TOS shit. Yeah, that hit.
The concept was like, and I don't know if Wingrace agrees with. The concept was really good. That's like, just think about that. The burn happened billions, not billions, and billions died.
Yeah, and like, think about exploring, all the people that were trapped or, finally coming in contact with someone again after all this time. And it reminded me of like what Andromeda started to do at the beginning, like hundreds of years in the future after the Federation's fallen, one lone ship from the past trying to put things back together.
Did they ever say if that was, because I know that was Roddenberry too, did they ever say Andromeda was the future of Star Trek? I know fans have kind of made it that.
I guess it could be, but it's kind of different. I mean, the technologies don't really mesh with each other.
Right.
But
that ain't never stopped them, though.
No.
What was I going to say about Andromeda? I think we were even talking about that during that season. How at a point it was like, is this their way of bringing it in? I don't know, but yeah, there was a lot. That was bad, and I agree. The burn definitely it deserves a place on this list as a controversial, completely controversial Star Trek moment.
And they set it up so good. It's like he's like, what? And, Michael Book says to her, he says, well, after the burn, and she's like, what's the burn? And he goes, where are you from? Like, everybody knows what the burn is. Like, he wasn't even born till afterwards, and he knows what it is.
I was talking about that for weeks before Discovery came on. We saw the talk about the burn in the previews, and I was, this sounds like it's gonna be fantastic. And we talked about that every week. I had a different theory, and we were breaking stuff down, and I had all these different theories, and nothing. The The only thing that good came out of that season is that I had predicted the Guardian of Forever. I just
You did predict that.
pulled that out my rump.
I
I,
didn't see that coming.
um, well, I've got a few that we haven't mentioned, and that if you guys have anything to say, knock on the table or something, I'll stop so you can. The depiction of torture in Chain of Command. Also, so this we got the depiction of torture, which might have been a bit much for some people, but it was so well done.
Give me
And we
context.
also
Who was
had
tortured?
hmm,
Who was tortured? Because sometimes I don't know episodes.
Picard. That was the two-parter that had Jellicoe, and then it had
Oh
Picard
yeah.
getting caught by the
Oh,
Cardassians.
that was brutal.
So we also had that Jellicoe situation, and we had the Picard being tortured situation. So either one, take your pick. Jellicoe, I do not like his style of command, did not like him, but really, was he a bad commander? You kind of have to just say he was just different than Picard. He was just different than what we were used to, and that made him a bad guy. But he was really not that bad. Okay, so I did talk about in our what you call it poll over here that's all deadlocked again. I talked about the episode where the TOS episode called Patterns of Force, where the USS Enterprise is sent to planet Echoes to investigate the disappearance of an old Academy professor of Kirk's, the historian named John Gill, and he was there pretending to be Hitler, and he had everybody living like they was in Nazi Germany.
That was messed up.
Yeah.
I wonder how people felt about, like, because obviously I was born in '68 and Star Trek came on in '66. I wonder how people felt about watching episodes involving the Nazis. Because remember, we weren't that far removed.
Yeah, it was only 20-something years.
From World War II. I guess I asked my mom.
Yep, it's something to think about. It was, about the same amount of time that we are now from 9/11.
Yeah,
and we've already seen a lot of shows kind of loosely depict the scenarios that we saw in 9/11. Some of them did it before, and some of it did it after. But yeah, it is something to think about. That was very close to the end of World War II. Also, the depiction of rape and violations. Remember, that was the one where Troy, Riker, and Dr. Crusher all fell into those unexplained comas while the Enterprise was transporting a group of telepathic historians. And the one guy was basically framing his father to be the person who was committing these mind rapes. Remember that one?
Yeah.
I think that might have been a little controversial because of the just the subject matter.
I tend to skip that one when I'm rewatching.
It is uncomfortable. It's a very uncomfortable episode. So yeah, we talked about generations. We all had that one in some way, shape, or form was on our list. Sexual and gender identity in the Outcast. I said I wasn't going to put that on my list, but then somebody said I would be being disingenuous because it was controversial at the time. So I don't want to be like I'm trying to gloss over the fact that episode happened and it was groundbreaking for the time that we were in. And Reinhardt talked about that one. Enterprise, Terra Prime. This episode was talking about xenophobia, the idea of Earth first isolationism. Some viewers thought it was too close to contemporary American politics. And it also ended up being the last episode that was in the natural timeline of Enterprise. The next one was it these? What is it? These are the voyages.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Lord. And what are we gonna do? Why we got to make Peter Weller, my boy, a bad guy all the time in Star Trek?
Maybe that's what he like. He played the hell out of him, so he said
he did. He because I hated both of those characters.
Clarence was saying that the burn was fun to dissect, but man, what the heck? And he was reminding us about the Four Lights episode. Uh-oh. Ash Tyler, you can't hurt me anymore. I'm trying to remember. What is it? What's the reference? Is it because of are we talking about the Klingons? I can't remember. Clarence, you're gonna have to remind me. Terra Prime is a heavy episode. It is.
Oh,
And that
What was it? What Clarence was talking about?
I'm gonna put it up here so here he can explain. You got some explaining to do. Far Beyond the Stars, the one where on D Space Nine, when Cisco gets blacked out or something, and he goes to 1950s and experiences that racism and discrimination. That could have been
wonderful.
Oh yes, you're right. Yes, I remember.
Oh yeah,
I
because
remember.
Pharrell, he said,
yeah, she was.
He said you forced me because
she was pretty much assaulting him.
Now, is he coming back in Section 31? I think he was originally going to be in it.
I hope so because I did like him.
He was a great actor.
Yeah, I like him.
I was so dim on that. I was like the only person on the planet. Spoilers warning if you haven't seen Star Trek Discovery season 1, but I was the only one that didn't realize that Ash and Bulk was the same person. I had no clue. I was like,
I mean, but we were talking. No, I wasn't talking about that. I was yelling at Clarence and them because look, this is how I met, or I even got in the orbit of Clarence and them as from Star Trek Discovery season 1. I was looking for podcasts to listen to. I found them. I've been with them ever since. But I used to yell. I'd be like, "Y'all can't see that. This is the same person." So yeah, I agree. It was crazy. It was a crazy twist, but I saw it coming. I did see it coming.
I didn't. Not at all.
In the Pale Moonlight, we talked about. You guys had that one as well. Prophet and Lace.
Oh yeah.
The female Ferengi, Prophet and Lace. You remember that one?
Oh yes. Don't listen. There's a lot to unpack there, Tasha. I see why you mentioned because, like, basically, we got a species where the women can't own anything; they are property, and they're not even allowed to wear clothes.
And this is also the one where Quark was the one dressed up like a woman.
Well, he wasn't dressed up. He had Dr. Bashir transition him.
Yes, which is a whole other.
Right. Oh, you're right. You're right.
He did. That's right.
Another example of Bashir just doing whatever someone wants.
Oh, it was another time that Bashir did.
It was in your. It was the Klingon one where you erased Kern's memories. Yeah. Or if you want to erase your brother's memories, okay.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Oh gosh. Rick says, "I just pictured Moogie naked." Oh, I'm sorry. Okay,
and
so the last one,
because you know they couldn't get away with that.
So
because remember they kept telling, and it was even uncomfortable for me because they kept telling their mom, Moogie kept telling their mom. He says, "Well, that'd be now you can take your clothes off." I was like, "Oh no, this is very uncomfortable."
I'm glad it wasn't made today on streaming because they would have shown
it. Oh no.
Last but not least, on my list is Threshold. That's the one with the salamanders.
That was a
Voyager. Yeah, Voyager crew. You look at. I've got. There are a million episodes that I could choose, But if I feel like I am doing a disservice to any list, if I don't talk about Threshold, if it's the worst Star Trek episodes, if it's the stupidest Star Trek episodes, and today controversial because why did y'all do that? Why did y'all insult our intelligence with this episode like this? And so much. Um, this was a season 2 episode, so we hadn't grown our beard, so to speak, but
it's worse than Spock's brain. It's worse than Spock's brain.
Yeah.
There's a few that go under Spock's brain.
Spock's brain has a good quote that came from it.
Was that?
What was the quote, please?
Was it brain and brain? What is brain?
Yeah, brain. What is brain? That's controversy if you think about it. Because they made all the female inhabitants not very bright.
But okay, I can even deal with that. It was like it's the sign of the times. It was a different time. In 1996, Threshold should have known better. It should have known better.
And not even just the salamander part, but to just casually write in breaking warp 10 so you can go anywhere in the universe.
Right.
And just whatever. We don't do it anymore because we become salamanders.
Yeah. We could have got all that fixed once we got where we were going at warp 10. Clara said, I didn't hate Threshold. The only thing I like about it is that it forced the writers to think of other warp technologies. They could have kept that. They could have kept it, man.
Yeah, I don't care if I ever see that one again.
Yeah, and I know eventually we're doing Trek by numbers. I'm gonna eventually pick 2 and what is it, 15, and when we get there, I'm gonna be really mad, and I'm gonna look to see because you know every season of Star Trek has, I mean every series has a episode 2, or a season 2. But they don't all have episode 15, and I'm lucky because that was going to be a very long series. But yeah, when we get there, Lord have mercy. Justice says that episode about warp 10 just made the warp scale so confusing. Threshold is rough. Yeah, that's all I got for my controversial ones.
I'm done.
You're done too?
I think that's the only other one I mentioned just because it's on a lot of lists is Move Along Home from DS9.
Oh, I forgot about that one, and I hate that episode. Now I read something where it was telling me to rewatch it. You know, somebody saying rewatch it. It's not that bad, and I haven't done that yet because I know I'll eventually pick that number. Huh?
Which one was that?
Move Along Home when that alien species came and put them in the game on DS9.
They're playing like hopscotch.
So they had to put themselves. They were
and it's like people. Alice in Wonderland kind of.
It was like they had to.
Or they were meeting.
It was like, to me, it was like Chutes and Ladders.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, that was bad. Yeah, that's probably why I blocked that out.
Yeah, it was like Chutes and Ladders. But yep, that's all I've got. I don't have anything else. And I'm gonna close in a minute because we've been here for 2.5 hours, and I know I do this and just sit here for hours, but I know everybody else ain't got to. I mean, we got things to do. The hopscotch episode. Claire's called it the hopscotch episode. Oh gosh. Next week is Mother's Day, so I'm going to take the week off as far as live streams go. But I may pick up sometime during the week, depending on how I'm feeling. Other than that, I don't have any other announcements. Remember, if you're in the Houston area, to come out and check out me, Clarence, and Jonathan from Discussing Trek. We are going to be doing Comic Palooza together. That's something. We'll be talking about the evolution of characters of Trek. I'm sorry.
I wish I was down there.
I wish you was too, man. Because you could have been on the stage with us. Yeah. Clarence said the actor of the aliens in that episode is Saul's brother in Better Call. Why can't I say these words? Better Call Saul. Great actor.
Yeah.
Rick says it was an interesting ending, different from most endings in Star Trek. David said, I know the episode you're talking about is Juvenile.
Wait, are we talking about the Thaw? Isn't that the one where Saul's brother is in from Voyager?
I don't know what we're talking about. The actor, the actor of the main aliens in that episode is Saul's brother in Better Call Better. Why do I keep doing that? Better Call Saul. I don't. I don't remember. I don't remember. I don't know which one we're talking about, and I'm confused. Uh, okay. Claire said can't wait for the Comic Palooza extravaganza that we're gonna have going. We are still all tied up on this poll. I'm just gonna go ahead on and end it. There's no winner.
No one wins.
uh
No prizes, no one wins.
no, yep. Everybody is like everybody gets a participation award. Justice says, thanks everyone. It was a great discussion. Bye, Rick. Clarence says he might be getting them confused. I don't know. And Rick says he plays the clown.
Yes, I know who you're talking about. I know who you're talking about.
What are we talking about?
That's still the one from.
We still talking about the.
Yeah.
Lenny and Squiggy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is Spinal Tap?
That's what he hearing that too.
Michael McKean.
Yeah.
I don't know his name, but I know Lenny and Squiggy.
He played the creepy clown thing from Voyager.
Yeah, then that's Michael McKean.
Yeah.
It was Voyager. He's right. Yeah. So Lenny and Squiggy. What you know? How old are you, Win Grace?
36.
How you know what Lenny and Squiggy is? Ain't that a little bit? Ain't that before your time? Wouldn't that be before his time?
I mean, I didn't have cable growing up, so I only
watches a lot of TV.
Lenny and Squiggy, though, man. I didn't. If I go in there and ask my son right now, who's Lenny and Squiggy, he ain't gonna know. But he's a bit younger. Justice says, I changed my vote from pale to 31 is the biggest controversial moment, which means that Section 31 won. It did win.
Perfect. The one thing we're actually getting a new movie of.
Yeah, that's the most. Just like, how could this thing even exist? Section 31. You know what none of us said, and I guess it's because we had already been. It's already been, I guess, addressed this year. None of us said anything about the changelings and the treatment that they receive in either one of these situations.
I thought about that doing, where section. But think about it. We've had Section 31 now in Enterprise. We've had it in the alternate timeline, right? We've had it, of course, DS9. Did they even hint at it in Voyager? I'm not sure if they did.
I don't think so.
But then we got it in Discovery. We got it in Strange New World. Well, adjacent Strange New World. We know that they're out there in Strange New Worlds.
Lower Decks.
Lower Decks. Well, Section 31 is its own lore.
And it started out with one guy, one questionable man in DS9.
Right, and again, all his little acolytes. He got some people to believe in what he believed, and it took on a life of its own.
Tasha, thank you for inviting me. I'm gonna have to jet.
All right, it has been fun.
Win Grace, it was finally great to put a face to the name. Enjoyed it. Had a blast. Huh?
Nice to meet. I said, this is all AI.
Hey, I see your picture back there. The Spock.
Oh yeah, it's supposed to be a Lego Spock or something.
I've got one on my wall that somebody actually painted for me. It looks similar to that one. Guy painted it for me at a con.
Yeah, I got it at a con too.
Take care, and I'll talk to you later. All right.
Bye. Thank you for joining me. Well, yeah, we're about to cut it loose anyway. Win Grace, tell people about your channel and where they can find you and all that good stuff.
I'm on YouTube at Win Grace, although I think it's easier if you do at Win Grace Project now that YouTube introduced these handle things. And mostly I talk about just Star Trek of current day, and then trying to branch out into stuff that came before. I talk about other things like Quantum Leap, and apparently more Babylon 5's coming, so
I forgot.
potentially I'll be
Yeah, you
talking
want to
about
tell them
that.
about that? Tell them about that because I forget because I didn't watch Babylon 5. So tell them about that before we get out of here.
So we don't know the facts. We know it's an animated film, and it's coming out soon. And they don't necessarily say where, so I don't know if it's streaming or if it's coming to straight to DVD or whatever. But it's made by the original guy who pretty much did the entire thing himself. So J. Michael Straczynski basically conceived of the show ran the entire thing. All of the novels, all the comics, and everything are tied in. So it's one continuous universe. Everything's canon, and he's been in control of the story the whole time. I don't know where they're going with this movie. He's going to release more information, I think, this Tuesday or this Thursday. I don't remember the exact date, but it's already done. He just announced that it's done, it's filmed, it's voice acted, it's in the can, ready to go. So that's coming out soon, and we'll find out more this upcoming week about what the heck it actually is, because the story kind of completed. So it's going to have to do something interesting to pick up where they left off.
Well, I am going to wait with bated breath to hear what it's about because I don't know if this is like if it's something that's following up stuff that I should have already seen if I had watched the series, and where I need to be in the series to be able to get something out of this animated movie.
I'm assuming it's an attempt to gauge interest because he's been trying to get the new show picked up. So I'm thinking it might be a bridge. Some of the old characters introduce new characters and see how much interest there is because it was supposed to be a new show on the CW before all that stuff happened. And they kind of, so
CW, whoo. Clarence, you got yourself a new subby, Win Grace. And Justin is saying he's going to do the same. And with all that, I've got nothing else. Thank you so much for joining me, Josh. It has been fun.
Thanks for having me. All the great discussion.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to close it out. I'll see
right.
you guys in the next one. Live long and prosper. Peace.
Take care.